Hi, everybody. I'm Nikki, and we're back finally for a brand new episode of the Songs That Save Me. This is the podcast that shows there truly is a song for everything. Today, I'm joined by Ian Saints. Hi, Ian.
Hello.
And tell me a little bit about the song that you chose to talk about today.
Yes. Wow, this will be a lot. And thank you for having me. Um, so the song I'm going to talk about is the song Rill Rill by Sleigh Bells. Um, there could be a movie made out of how this all came about.
Mhm.
But the guy that's on my shirt, first of all, his mother and his sister Bree made this memorial shirt. This is RoMellow Williams. He was a rapper and poet and just all around creative. He loved
Right.
anything creative, anything cultural. We met at the State Fair of Texas, so I was going to wear this shirt because it's the one I was wearing when we met. So I MC the State Fair of Texas music stages,
Mhm.
and State Fair Records brought me on for that. So this is their shirt, and this will be my third year doing that. In the
Wow.
fall, kicks off September 25th. Um, but my very first day on the job, before my first set, at the Bud Light stage in Cottonville Plaza, I met RoMello,
Mhm.
and um, yeah, the next, 7 months or a little bit less than that. It's almost like it was a movie.
Fast
But
friends.
it was real life. Yeah, I mean, because from the time we met, we just really clicked, and it's interesting, because obviously he and I are so different on the surface. We're
Mhm.
like polar opposites, but um, and he was 6'4", so he was like, half a foot taller than me. I actually am taller than some people seem to think from pictures with RoMello, but yeah, anyway, so throughout the fair, the state fair is 24 days long, but um we had so many, his favorite ride was the Love Bug, and so I rode that for the first time
Mhm.
with him, and he was there. The Unfaded Brass Band plays the State Fair of Texas Bud Light stage on the last day. And he came out for that, where we danced around the midway with the big brass band and everything. And but we went to some shows outside of the fair. I'd get off and we'd go explore. And like one of them was Santi Gold. Um,
Ooh.
yeah. So Santi Gold played the Bomb Factory in Deep Ellum, where I
Mhm.
live, during the state fair, and she brings people on stage for the song "Unstoppable," and also Creator. But Romello went up there, and he'd been wanting to see Santi Gold for many years. I believe 2016 is when he tried seeing her, but he was in the hospital. So he
Oh.
was. I know this is a lot, but he was 27, and he'd had leukemia for 13 years. Um,
Wow.
so he was in the hospital when he had the chance to see Santi Gold before. And so he finally had the opportunity. And so to go on stage with her, and man, he crushed the dancing. Like he really, got a lot of people cheering and everything. And after the show, he was just so elated and, talking about that, disappointment and not seeing her, when he was in the hospital. And just, I remember he said, like, life is so beautiful, because of just the way that all played out. And then after he died, I was interviewing Santi Gold, and because she had shows in Ohio. I'm with NPR and PBS at their Ohio University affiliate.
Mhm.
WOUB is the affiliate. And so I interviewed Santi Gold, and I showed her the clip of him dancing, and she's like, "Wow, he was really good." So I went to see her in Columbus, and I got on stage, um, and I wound up dancing. And it's funny because like this stage was smaller than Bomb Factory, so
Mhm.
Santi Gold jumped off stage to make more room. So all of a sudden, I was center stage.
The star of the show.
Well, that wasn't the plan. I was going to follow the dancers. Like, she has
Mhm.
dancers on the sides, and I was going to follow her along with them. But all of a sudden I was in the center, 'cause she like gave me a hug and then she hopped off stage. And so I just had to like kind of wing it and like look to the sides and try to do it. And I thought I embarrassed myself, but the audience, I think it was like 15 of us on stage, and the audience voted me as the winner of
Ooh.
dance contest. And I was wearing this shirt, so it's kind of amazing. I'd never danced at a hip hop show before,
Mhm.
in front of a couple thousand people, but yeah, so that was one show. Another one was Sixpence None the Richer, who
Ooh, so cool.
mhm, of course, Kiss Me is a timeless, timeless, timeless hit. And they had a new EP out, great EP. That was at the Kessler, and after the show, Matt, the guitarist and the guy who wrote Kiss Me,
Mhm.
his name's Matt Slocum, and then Lee Nash, the singer, met me and RoMellow, and Lee is just so sweet. I mean, they're all great people, but Lee is just such a sweet person. And like she followed RoMellow on Instagram, and he was,
Oh,
excited about that. And when he died 6 months later, she sent me a really nice message to read at his funeral.
that
So,
is really sweet. Wow.
mhm, yeah. And then gosh, we saw Cyndi Lauper on her farewell tour. Now, this was right after the fair had ended, but
Mhm.
um, Cyndi Lauper, strangely enough, I'm sorry this jumps around so much. There's just so much to the story, but um, when RoMellow died, I was in Europe. I was in Athens, Greece.
Mhm.
It was our last night there, and it's crazy. Like I found out we'd been out, to the Acropolis and everything. And then when I got home was when our friend Shaquela messaged me and told me that he had died. And of course, I was so shell shocked. And I just was kind of hit with like, he was only 27. And I
Mhm.
just know he had so many dreams. He was so ambitious. He had gone to Costa Rica a few months before that, and he really got bit with the travel bug. And I was the one that took him to and from the airport for that. And he wanted to travel a lot more. And so here I was in, Athens, Greece, and
Yeah.
thinking about like um just, how many dream I think that's the I mean, of course, his family. I mean, there's so many aspects of it that are very sad, but the thing that I think shell shocked me in the moment being in Greece and everything was just knowing how much more he wanted to see and do.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And so I walked out on the balcony, and when I opened the balcony door, it's so strange. Like I got hit by this blast of wind that really like took my breath
Hmm.
away. And I don't know. I mean, it was a gusty evening, but it's just I hadn't really encountered that before,
Yeah.
that sort of feeling. And then I went for a walk, and I was playing I'll Be Missing You, which was the number one song when RoMellow was born. And he knew that. We talked about it
Hmm.
because when he was in Costa Rica, my first Buddy Magazine cover story interview was with Andy Summers from the Police, and his guitar part on Every Breath You Take was sampled for I'll Be Missing You.
Yeah.
And so I remember FaceTiming with RoMellow. Um, he was, excited about that interview too.
Hmm.
And, he was telling the people in Costa Rica he was with about that. And yeah, we talked about how I'll Be Missing You was the number one song when he was born. So, I mean, there's so many things. And I'll just say one more. I was, like I said, I was going to wear this shirt, but what reminded me to wear this
Hmm.
is this sounds really strange and name droppy, but I swear it's true. I happened to be texting with Omarion this morning.
Love
Um,
Marion.
love Omarion, and I interviewed him a few months ago as he was on the Millennium Tour with B2K,
Hmm.
and we I've always admired Omarion, not just for obviously his talent, phenomenal singer and dancer. Um, but he also is just a really good guy and always has been. I hadn't fully grasped how young B2K was when they came out, and even when
Right.
went solo, I think he was only 19 or 20, and as someone who, I mean, the 2000s were a messy time. It was in vogue to be a hot mess,
Hmm.
and he wasn't. So anyway, Omarion's a great guy, and he, invited me to come see the tour. But I was in Cleveland when they were in Dallas Fort Worth, and then I was in Dallas Fort Worth when they were in Cleveland. So um, Memphis, I said, oh, I can make Memphis on my way to Nashville, and it turns out I hadn't known this at the time, but that was the 1 year anniversary of RoMello's death. Um, and so that was, a tough day. And I hadn't really properly visited Memphis before.
Hmm.
So, going to a new city and I didn't know who to go with. And it was sad because I knew, RoMello absolutely would have been the one to go with me.
Yeah.
Um, so I flew into Memphis and I get on the bus, because I say I'm a working class person. I ride the
Right,
bus,
right. We
but I
love
could
public transportation.
public transportation if I can manage it. And the bus driver was, just making sure I knew where I was going and everything. And I told her about the Millennium Tour because I was staying like walking distance to the FedEx Forum. And she's like, oh my gosh, my daughter and like different people in her family were all going. And
Hmm.
I was like, well, why don't you come with me? So I literally
That's
took
awesome.
the bus driver, she was off work by then. I took the bus driver to be my plus one, for the Millennium Tour, and we had so much fun. And that is totally something RoMello would have done. So
Hmm.
yeah, that was and it turns out the photo that his family used for his obituary was taken in Memphis, and I didn't know that at the time.
Wow. That's so cool.
So yeah, I mean, and there's even more, but I don't want to detract from the song that we're focusing on, which is Rill Rill.
Yes.
Rill Rill by Sleigh Bells.
Yeah, I hadn't heard the song before, and I listened to it a lot, and I feel like from what you're telling me about Romello, it kind of encapsulates this like vibe of like hope and optimism, which really resonates with me.
Yeah, and you know what? As we were talking now, it just occurred to me, here's another crazy coincidence. So Rill Rill samples um Funkadelic. It's
Hmm.
samples Maggot Brain. Um ca- can you get back to let me see. Let me get the exact song title. Because I'm a stickler. Um Maggot Brain. Here it is. No, I need the album. Go to the album. Can you get to that? Can you get to that?
Oh,
It
okay.
samples Can You Get to That by Funkadelic, which is the band that Bootsy Collins joined. And that's why me and Omarion were in touch, is because I had just interviewed Bootsy Collins from Parliament Funkadelic and James Brown
Nice.
and yeah, funk pioneer Bootsy
Legend.
Collins. But yeah, it's pretty crazy. That's why Omarion and I were talking this morning, was my Bootsy Collins interview, and he was in Parliament Funkadelic, and what do you know? Real samples Funkadelic. Um,
Synergy.
I know, it's pretty wild. So what led me to this song? The very last time that Romello and I were together, we had gone to the Longhorn Ballroom
Mhm.
for they had a Punks and Pokes show, or maybe it was Pokes and Punks. Um, I love alliteration. I just don't remember the order, but it was a really genius pairing. It was 1100 Springs, who, funnily enough, that was like the first like Texas band I ever saw live at the Granada Theater
Ooh,
um,
okay.
when I moved to Dallas. I'd never been to Dallas when I moved down from Cleveland. And I mean, honestly, growing up, Texas seemed like a different planet. Like I never would have imagined. And so it was 1100 Springs and Bowling for Soup. And after the show, Romello and I met Jarrett, the frontman for Bowling for Soup, and
Cool.
they have a song called "Come Back to Texas" about a girl who moves to Cleveland. And he's, talking about the Rock Hall and all that, but Texas has this, and I remember that song when it came out, and like back then it was unfathomable growing up in Cleveland that I'd ever live in Texas, and then here I was, watching Bowling
Right.
for Soup. Um, in Texas. And so RoMellow and I met Jarrett, the frontman. We were in a suite with Tammy Thompson, my amazing friend, a huge force in the music industry in Dallas. And she's actually the one that referred me for the State Fair gig. Um,
Uh-huh.
so shout out to Tammy. Anyway, he was driving me home to Deep Ellum from that show. And the first thing is Beyonce announced the Cowboy Carter tour. So we plan on going to the Cowboy Carter tour, which he did not live to see. But I saw that in Atlanta, and I want like that's a whole other we could do a whole other episode on that. In fact, I almost picked something from Cowboy Carter for this episode. But um anyway, the other thing was that Sleigh Bells, I remember him mentioning Sleigh Bells. Like he went to emo karaoke night in Deep Ellum
Mhm.
right after we met at the fair, and he was telling me like, "Oh, I think I might do Sleigh Bells." Um, he wound up doing Fall Out Boy, but um, anyway, he was so excited about Sleigh Bells going on tour because he had never seen them live. They were his favorite band, and he really got into them in seventh grade. And he'd been waiting all this time, to see them in concert. And
Mhm.
they had also put out a new single for their new album. It's called "Wanna Start a Band." And so he was just over the moon. And I had an idea of, oh, I'd love. He had just met the publisher for Buddy Magazine earlier that night, Rob
Mhm.
Garner. Shout out to Rob. Um, and he really wanted to contribute to Buddy Magazine. And so I was like, oh, this would be the perfect opportunity, interviewing
Right.
his favorite band. Um, I had just come back from Ireland. I have a whole thing about Your Roots Are Showing, the music conference in Ireland, um, that RoMellow plays a part in, but that would be, I'm trying to not detract so much. Nikki, I'm telling you, this, it really was like a movie. It's crazy in
It does
retrospect
sound
how
like a movie.
it's crazy in retrospect how it wasn't much longer. Like there was so much that happened. Um, but I had just gotten back from Ireland, um, and I was so jet lagged. They're 6 hours ahead of Dallas. So when we were driving home, it was like 5 in the morning, from my body clock. So I was like, so what happened was Romello basically took me on a listening marathon for Sleigh Bells. And I was like, I'm not going to retain all this information. So, because I was way too jet lagged. And so I recorded a voice memo to use for an interview with Sleigh Bells.
Oh, that's genius. I love
Hmm.
that.
And so did not know at the time that I was recording the last time Romello and I were together.
Mm.
So he played me the new song. He told me all about them. And then he played songs from like throughout their discography, including the middle period, like the Jessica Rabbit album. I think that might have been his favorite. It's a
Mm.
little bit overlooked in their discography, but um, the very last song, as we were pulling up to Deep Ellum, he was dropping me off at Reno's Chop Shop. Shout out to Reno's because Reno's is the first place in Deep Ellum I ever went to.
Oh.
So I talked about this on the Dallas Famous podcast with Andrew Sherman that just came out. So I hadn't really fully realized that, yeah, the place that Romello dropped me off the last time I saw him was the first place I went to in Deep Ellum
Hmm.
all those years ago. But anyway, for Rill Rill, he was explaining to me that this was the first song he heard by them, and it totally changed his life, because he was a hip hop guy, like,
Hmm.
um, he was a rapper and everything. But this is why me and Romello gelled so well, even though we were polar opposites on the surface,
Hmm.
because we're both very eclectic and we both like exploring all different types of scenes. So the
Yeah.
fact that he could rock with the Sixpence None the Richer concert, not only made an impression on me, but also Lee. She
Mhm.
said, I remember him so vividly, and she's like, because a 6'4", black guy from Texas, like, rapper
Yeah.
is not usually who they encounter at their shows.
Uh-huh.
Um, but then, like, also, I remember one time, I responded to RoMellow with Kaya lyrics. Like I just, I was excited about something, and so I started rattling off some Kaya, and he was kind of like, I
What?
don't think he expected that from me. So that is why we gelled so well, was we were each other's match, I think, in that spirit, even though,
Mhm.
on the surface, it was, you would think we had nothing in common.
And those are the best types of friendships, honestly.
Yeah, yes, I think so. And so he was, telling me that Rill Rill, when he heard that, it totally blew his mind, because he
Mhm.
was very much in an R&B and hip hop and rap bubble. And he said, this introduced me to my emo phase. And then, if you play that song, Real Real, Derek, the guy in Sleigh Bells, said it is like definitely a song where, like, it's kind of like you're in a car with somebody and you stick your hand out the window. And that's basically what
It's
I
a
was doing with
moment.
Ellen. Uh-huh. I know. And so it's very strange, like, because, I have this recording of me and Romello saying goodbye. And, I was like, oh, this was really fun. And he had really fun. He had a lot of fun that night too. And he's like, and we have plenty ahead, like plenty of adventures ahead. And of course, I never saw him again. And but that song's playing, and then you could hear in the recording, because I didn't click it off until I, got out of the car, so you could hear the music fading away real as
Wow.
I was approaching Reno's. And Reno's is a lot of bikers go there, so you could hear the motorcycles revving up as I was walking away from Romello's car. So Romello died 4 weeks to the day before the Sleigh Bells concert
Wow.
at the Granada Theater. Um, which I believe is the first place I saw. Like I think that's the first local. It might have been. I'd have to go back and look. I might have gone. I think I had gone to like Trees before, but
Mhm.
anyway, nevertheless, Granada Theater is a very iconic venue. Dolly
Yes, I
Parton's
love
played
it.
there. Yeah, it's an amazing venue. Um, Shout out to my friend Wesley. Wesley Delgado. She's the marketing person there, and she knew Romello. We went to go see Frankie Valli
Oh.
in Grand Prairie. Because can't take my eyes off you. Romello knew of that through Lauryn Hill,
Hmm.
um, and then I don't know, we went to see Frankie, and it's one of my favorite videos of Romello is during that song, and he I mean it's a masterpiece song. I certainly hadn't thought that Frankie Valli would outlive Romello. It's kind of, because he was already like
Yeah.
90 or 91. But anyway, um, yes, 4 weeks exactly before that Granada show, Romello died. And actually, hours before he died, Alexis, the singer,
Hmm.
she posted a video on Instagram doing the choreography for Badly, a new song called Badly, and that's what they were opening the show with. And she's like, "Here, learn the choreography." And Romello commented on it, and that was hours before he died.
Man.
Uh-huh. And so it's crazy. Again, I was in Athens, Greece when he died, and then the next day we went to Croatia. The day after that, we were in Montenegro, and then the day after that, we were in Paris. And
Hmm.
all of those, like, so I cried in 4 different countries, like, and then I
Yeah, it's
had
a
a
huge
flight.
loss.
Yeah, yeah. And then when I flew home, I was on an Air France flight, and I watched Cyndi Lauper's documentary. He and I had just been to her farewell show. I've got this really funny clip of Romello during Girls Just Want to Have Fun, where he tried to be like kind of like a thug singing it. Um, and then oddly enough, when I was a red carpet correspondent for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in LA for their induction ceremony, Cyndi Lauper was being inducted by Chapel Roan. And
Oh, yeah.
I was the only one that interviewed Chapel, which was a
I
big
saw
surprise.
that.
Yeah, that was a big surprise. Um, but we talked about Cyndi Lauper, and it was a great exchange. Like Chapel, it was a great interview. Her publicist was pleased, the Rock Hall was pleased, and I was relieved. I didn't know because I didn't expect to talk to her, and I
Right.
so but yeah, we had seen Cindy's farewell show, and so that brushed me up on um Cyndi and Chapel and RoMellow were the same age. So like what Chapel found appealing about Cyndi, I kind of thought about RoMellow had said and
Mhm.
everything. But yeah, kind of funny that Chapel interview on my first LA red carpet was kind of tying back to RoMellow. But anyway, I I just was I could not get past like just how much more RoMellow wanted to do and just like
Mhm.
I was like, gosh, he was so excited for that Sleigh Bells show, and like he didn't even live to that. He missed it by 28 days.
Wow.
And so I reached out to the publisher for Buddy Magazine. His name is Rob Garner.
Mhm.
And of course, he was very sad. He met RoMellow a couple months before he died. And I said, the things that RoMellow took me on such a deep dive of Sleigh Bells in that recording
Mhm.
that I said, and he wanted to contribute to Buddy. And I said, what do you think about me doing an interview with Sleigh Bells using RoMellow's commentary? Like having him basically conduct the interview, like he's in the driver's seat and I'm kind of um the the co-pilot
Mhm.
or the first officer, I guess is the correct terminology. If he's the captain, I was the first officer. Uh, and thankfully Rob approved that. And I reached out to Sleigh Bell's manager
Mhm.
and they were already on the road. So and Alexis had become a mom. So she had her I think
Mhm.
he might have been two, toddler. She had a toddler on the road. It was her first tour as a mom.
Mhm.
But they got right back to me and they, you know, said they'd love to oblige the interview. And they also offered um, tickets for his family. And Romello's got a big family. He's the oldest. I think his father has three other kids.
Mhm.
Might be a little, it could be another one or so. Um, and then his mom, I think he was one of 11 or 12. So he's
Wow, that
got
is
a
a
lot of
big
siblings.
family.
Yeah. Yeah. And I apologize, I don't have the exact numbers in my head, but I said, he's got a big family, but they let them come, so both of his parents were there. And everybody in Romello's family that went, that was their first rock concert.
Wow.
Um, so I did the interview, and strangely enough, just this wasn't the plan, but I put in for interviewing Pat Benatar,
Mhm.
um, and her husband Neil Giraldo, who's been her music partner from
The beginning,
he's the
right?
one playing guitar and Heartbreaker and all that. um, I woke up that morning and found out I was going to be interviewing them that same day. So I had just gotten done with Pat Benatar and Neil Giraldo before I talked to Sleigh Bells. It was the strangest day. But yeah, I mean, I played them. We went through the songs that Romello played me in his commentary. And I mean, Romello, talked about their beginnings and stuff that Derek went through during that middle period.
So he
And
knew the full history.
yeah.
Wow.
And so I just played his remarks. It was really special, for them to hear his voice. And then we would just have our Q&A based upon what he said.
That's so beautiful. I love that.
Yeah. And then they also offered to dedicate a song to him. And we decided in the interview, because Rill Rill, they heard him talk about how like this was the first song I heard by them.
Mhm.
It's their biggest song. And they felt like that was the one. And I agreed. I felt that was the right one as well. Um, so day of the show, I met up with their tour manager. Got a shirt for Alexis,
Hmm.
and I sent her a file of RoMellow talking about that song.
Yeah.
And as you can see in the article, there's a YouTube video of her coming on stage, putting the shirt on, talking about him and how stoked he was, and
Hmm.
had only died 28 days prior. And she played his voice. The whole Granada Theater, heard
So
RoMello,
amazing.
mhm, talking about that song and how it changed his life. And then when he said, "This introduced me to my emo phase," actually, everybody laughed. Um, and it was, I have to say the audience was really respectful because it would have been easy for people that want to make sure they're heard to like yell out, but it
Hmm.
it got very quiet, when she started talking about RoMello.
Yeah.
And I was with his parents and his family in a balcony suite.
Hmm.
And so like everybody waved up to us and everything. And so they do the song, and it was very surreal, hearing me and RoMello,
Yeah.
played in the Granada Theater with the band that the last time I was with him. I mean, that was the last song that played when I was with him. And then in the middle, Alexis jumped off stage and she ran all the way up to the balcony, and she hugged his mom and his dad, and she got up, and everybody in the audience turned to face us, and she led them to sing the song up to us. And it was very the closest thing I can think of, Michael Jackson, the last video he did, and he didn't finish it, but it was One More Chance.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And that was where the audience was on the stage and he was down.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
it kind of it felt like that. you know it kind of felt, that's what I keep thinking of. I mean, and you could see in the movie, in the movie it felt like a movie. I mean, it just watching everybody turn around and face us, and the spotlight was on us, and we
Hmm.
were seated, and it reminds me of that Michael Jackson video. It's pretty crazy. Um and that's what happened. I mean, it was just like it was RoMello was very he was just very larger than life,
Hmm.
and I felt, when I couldn't get past the knowing how many dreams he had.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, but in the wake of that tragedy, how much more cinematic can that be? Where his favorite band does that, brings his parents out, and plays his voice, and um leads. We were all wearing these shirts,
Yeah.
and the audience, I mean, that's a couple thousand people that are who didn't know him before, that are always going to have that memory.
Mm. It's a perfect way to honor him.
Yeah. Yeah, and so that really that helped me a lot. That
Hmm.
helped me a lot. Um that helped me a lot because it made me realize that between the interview where he did get his first interview in Buddy magazine, and it says by RoMellow Williams and Ian Saint, because I wrote the intro and all that. But I mean, you see he steered the interview, and
Yeah.
they were responding to what he was saying. So like that was a dream come true for him that happened, after he died. And also, I mean, he really wanted to meet them. He wanted to go to the show and meet them. And so to be part of the show, especially for their biggest song and the one that changed his life, um, I mean, that's just, he would have died again. I don't mean to
Yeah,
be
that's
morbid.
so special.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And I I went to Dollywood. I so when I interviewed Santi Gold shortly after that, I had not realized that Dollywood, it's in Tennessee, so I assumed it was Central Time. I didn't realize it was Eastern Time. So I screwed up, like when I thought I was going to be settled in the Dollywood area to interview Santi Gold. I actually had to like pull over in this tiny, tiny town with cows. Literally, cows were behind me when I spoke to Santi Gold because it was, I was an hour off.
Mhm.
Um, but the night after I spoke to Santi Gold, and it was like a few days after the Sleigh Bells thing, he appeared in a dream. Um,
Aw.
and it's kind of private, but like it was so vivid, and I heard his voice so clearly, and like I could feel him, like um I haven't really shared that publicly, but yeah, that what happened with Rill Rill and Sleigh Bells, it definitely helped a lot in being able to accept and process his passing. And I'm just thrilled at how many people take an interest in his story. And
Yeah,
yeah, so it didn't have to die with him, those dreams.
that's so true. I love that. That's perfect, perfect way to say that.
Well, I didn't leave much room for you to ask questions. I'm sorry, there's just so much to it. I
No,
mean, it
this
really
is the
is like
floor.
it's a
This was all for
screenplay.
you. I'm glad you got to share that all the memories that you had with Romello and how that song was just such kind of like an important thread in your friendship with him. And I love that so much.
Yeah, I mean, it really it's unbelievable,
Mhm.
and if anybody wants to follow his story on Instagram, he's mellow dramatic with two C's on the end.
Mhm.
um, I don't believe anybody has control of that account. I think he was the only one, but he has content, from over the years, and he could be pretty candid. And yeah, um, thank you for having me. It's like I said, it's an honor whenever anybody takes an interest in his story. So
No problem. Thank you so much for being so open and sharing. I really appreciate it. And I'm sure that so many people can, feel how much you care for Romello.
yeah, and I hope it helps somebody, if they're faced with a similar situation,
Mhm.
um, because it's it's tough, when someone that young dies
Yeah.
unexpectedly. I mean, he did have leukemia, but it was still unexpected. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, I hope I covered all the bases. I know Zoom's
You
going to cut us
did.
off in a minute,
Yeah.
but
I'm looking. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Ian, and for sharing your story and sharing how Real Real by Sleigh Bells impacted your life. I really appreciate it.
yeah, thanks for having me. It's fun to talk about.
All right. Thank you so much.
All
Bye.
right.
Hey y'all, just popping back in to say thank you so much for listening to the first episode of a new era of the songs that saved me. Thank you so much to Ian Saint for joining me and sharing so many special stories about his good friend Romello and the time they spent together and how sleigh bells influenced their friendship and ultimately honored him at the Granada Theater. If you want to follow Ian, you can find him on Instagram at ian.saint and stay tuned for more episodes coming soon. Bye.